Hi, my name is Luna. And this is the story of how everything I thought I knew about love, about marriage, about myself shattered in a single sentence. It happened on a rooftop in downtown Seattle. With the summer sun dipping low behind the Olympic Mountains and jazz music drifting gently across the terrace, friends, family, old coworkers, even a few of Natalie's professors had gathered to celebrate her graduation from UCLA. My daughter, Natalie Weston valedictorian, fiercely independent, full of life, sat to my right, still wearing her cap with pride and a glass of sparkling cider in her hand. I was proud. God, I was proud. Across the table from me stood my husband, Ethan. 27 years together? Through job losses, relocations, a miscarriage, a second mortgage, everything. We were supposed to be toasting Natalie, and he raised his champagne glass, cleared his throat, and said, "I've decided to start a new chapter of my life without Luna." The clink of cutlery froze midair. Someone gasped. Others stopped chewing, blinking at him in disbelief. 40 pairs of eyes bounced between Ethan and me, waiting for me to cry, shout, fall apart. But I didn't. Instead, I picked up the ivory envelope I had brought in my purse, slid it across the table, and placed it right beside his untouched dessert plate. Ethan blinked. "What's this?" he asked, his voice too loud, too shaky. "Something you'll want to read later," I said. I smiled, not cruelly, just calmly. Then I turned to Natalie, kissed her cheek, and whispered, "I am so proud of you. No one gets to steal this day from you." Her face was frozen in a kind of pale horror, eyes wide, hands gripping her napkin. I stood, straightened the navy blue dress I had bought just for the occasion, looked around at the stunned crowd and said, "Please, enjoy the rest of your meal. The view's lovely tonight." Then I walked out. Not rushed, not trembling, just done. As the heavy restaurant door closed behind me, the warmth of the Seattle evening wrapped around me like a blanket I hadn't known I'd missed. For the first time in years, I could breathe. Really breathe. Behind me, the door burst open again. Ethan's voice, usually so smooth and composed, now cracked with panic. "Luna, what the hell is this? What have you done?" But I didn't turn back. I didn't need to. Because what he didn't know, what no one knew, was that this envelope, the one now shaking slightly in his hand, didn't just contain documents. It contained the beginning of a plan I had been quietly, methodically preparing for months. He had made a move he thought would blindside me, but Ethan Weston had no idea. I had already played my hand. And I wasn't the woman he remembered. Let me tell you something. People like to imagine betrayal as a sudden thing, a knife in the back, a shocking twist. But sometimes, betrayal creeps in slowly, disguised as sacrifice. Until one day you realize you gave your entire life away in installments. I met Ethan when I was 24. Fresh out of grad school with a finance degree and a head full of dreams. I wanted to open a consultancy one day, a space where women could come to understand their money, their power, their worth. But Ethan had dreams. 2. Big ones. Risky ones. Always one step away from greatness. So I shelved mine. When he left his steady job at an ad agency to launch his own firm, Weston Creatives, I kept us afloat. I picked up a second position at a credit union, made the mortgage payments, cooked, budgeted, mothered. When his first 2 clients pulled out, I told him it was just a bump. When he maxed out a business credit card trying to impress a potential investor, I quietly paid it off. I was always the safety net. Then came Natalie, our miracle baby. I stayed home for the first few years, built her routines, packed her lunch, read every parenting book I could find. Ethan, meanwhile, traveled for networking, often missing birthdays and school recitals. But I told myself, this is love. This is what commitment looks like. And honestly, I believed it. Even when he forgot our 15th anniversary. Even when he came home late from strategy meetings, smelling like a cologne he never wore, I told myself he was just stressed. Then 3 months ago, while reviewing our finances, as I'd done every month for 20 years, I noticed it. A $278 transfer to an unfamiliar account. Then another. And another. Same account. Always round numbers. Always on Fridays. I didn't confront him right away. I wanted to be sure. So I waited. I tracked. I documented. I pulled archived credit card statements and cross-referenced them. A dinner at Canlis. Jewelry from a boutique in San Diego. A lease application for a waterfront apartment under both his and a woman's name, Haley Rhodes. That name rang a bell. She was one of the new hires at Weston Creatives. The one he said was just out of grad school, but full of promise. What Ethan didn't know, what he never really respected, was that I understood numbers. I saw stories in spreadsheets. And the story unfolding in front of me, it wasn't just about infidelity. It was about theft. About months, years of lies told while I was paying the bills. Believing we were building something together. And then came the final insult, a series of texts on his phone he left open one night when he fell asleep on the couch. After Natalie's graduation, I'll tell her. Luna won't make a scene in public. We'll be in San Diego by July. I'm done pretending. That was the moment I stopped hoping. I wasn't angry yet. I wasn't even sad. I was done. And I was about to remind Ethan that when a woman gives up everything for you, she eventually learns how to take it all back. I didn't go back to the restaurant. While Ethan soaked in the chaos he created, I drove home our house in Bellevue. The one with the maple tree out front and the porch swing we never used. The house we bought together 15 years ago. The one he had already promised to Haley in a text I wasn't supposed to see. I parked the car, walked inside, and stood for a moment in the silence. The family photos were still on the walls. Our wedding picture still hung over the fireplace. The grandfather clock that once belonged to my father ticked steadily in the foyer, unfazed by betrayal. But I had changed. I climbed the stairs, opened the master bedroom closet, and found exactly what I expected: Ethan's suitcases. Neatly packed, tucked behind his golf clubs. Shirts folded just so, ties color-coded. His exit was always planned. He just didn't plan for me to go first. My phone buzzed. 15 missed calls. Messages from friends at the dinner. From Ethan's sister Marcy. Even from Natalie. Only one mattered. Natalie, Mom. Are you okay? Please tell me you're okay. I don't understand what's happening. I replied simply, I'm okay. This isn't your burden. Enjoy your day. We'll talk tonight. I love you so much. I had shielded her from this for months. She deserved to graduate with joy. Not whispers. She would be angry, later hurt. I hadn't told her, but someday she'd understand why I chose to protect her peace one last time. Hours passed. I made tea. I reviewed my documents again. Not because I needed to, but because control, for once, felt good. Then came the door. It slammed open like a hurricane. Luna Ethan's voice cracked through the quiet like a snapped wire. What the hell is this? He stormed into the living room, waving the papers I'd handed him. You served me divorce papers today. On Natalie's graduation, I didn't rise. I didn't blink. I thought it paired nicely with your announcement. I said, tone even. You wanted a new beginning. I'm simply speeding it up. You had no right. I had every right. I interrupted. Voice firm now. Just like you had every right to choose Haley. We all make choices. Ethan. He straightened his spine. Tried to regain footing. The prenup expired. Any decent lawyer will tell you that. I smiled faintly. Actually, it didn't. Section 12 still applies for the life of the marriage. Infidelity voids your claim to joint assets. Your lawyer should have explained that. Oh, wait. You didn't hire one. Did you? His face drained of color. That prenup, the one he insisted on back when I had more savings than him, was about to be the most expensive decision he ever made. You can't do this, he said, slumping onto the couch. You already did. I replied. I'm just responding. She was still in her graduation dress. Mascara smudged. Heels in hand. The second she saw me, she dropped everything and wrapped her arms around me. Just like she used to when she was 6 and afraid of thunderstorms. Why didn't you tell me? She whispered. Voice trembling. I would've. I could've. I held her tight. Because you deserved one last peaceful chapter. And because this wasn't yours to carry. She pulled back and looked at me. Eyes full of pain and fury. The texts he thought I'd never see. Her hands balled into fists. I knew something was off. She said. He's been distracted. Weird. Always texting. But I thought maybe it was stress. Not a second life. She paused. Her voice cracking again. I was working 2 part-time jobs last semester. I asked him for help with rent. He said, we needed to be tight with money. All while he was buying beachfront candles and $400 dinners for her. I looked at her. Eyes stinging. I'm sorry. I said, I should have told you sooner. No. She replied, shaking her head. I'm glad you didn't. Because right now all I want is to stand with you. A knock at the door broke the silence. Marcy peeked out. Then turned back. Lips pressed in a thin line. It's Ethan. And he brought her. My chest tightened. But I didn't flinch. Ethan stepped into the room with Haley trailing behind. She looked nervous. Like someone who had finally realized this wasn't going to end with sunsets and champagne. Luna. This is ridiculous. Ethan said. You've frozen the accounts. You're making things harder than they need to be. Natalie stood. You mean like how you made things harder for Mom, like how you detonated a family on the night I was supposed to feel proud of everything we built together? Ethan blinked. Stunned. This doesn't involve you, he began. It involves me the minute you turned my graduation into a press release for your midlife crisis. She snapped. Haley shifted uncomfortably. Maybe we should just... She began. No. Ethan cut in. Jaw clenched. I'm not leaving until Luna agrees to be reasonable. Marcy crossed her arms. You should have thought of that before breaking every bit of trust she ever gave you. I stayed seated. For the first time in my life, I didn't have to say anything to be heard. Natalie had spoken for me. And Ethan. He was finally outnumbered by the truth. 3 days later, we stood before a judge in a modest courtroom in King County. Rain streaked down the windows like a soundtrack to everything that had broken. I sat beside my attorney, Philip Anderson, calm, sharp, methodical. Ethan sat across the aisle with a lawyer I didn't recognize. Young. Corporate-looking. Probably someone he scrambled to hire last minute. Haley wasn't there. No surprise. The judge, a woman in her 60s with gray curls and eyes that missed nothing, adjusted her glasses and began flipping through the documents. "This prenuptial agreement," she said. Eyebrows lifting. Section 12. Fidelity clause still active. Mr. Weston. "Do you contest the terms?" Ethan's lawyer cleared his throat. "Your Honor. We believe the duration of the agreement has expired due to the length of the marriage." The judge cut him off. Section 18 clearly states, "For the duration of the legal marriage, including proceedings of dissolution." That clause is binding. Ethan leaned forward, whispering furiously to his lawyer. The younger man simply looked down. The judge continued. "Furthermore, the documented account activity suggests deliberate misrepresentation of financial intent, pending full discovery. I am maintaining the freeze on joint assets. Mr. Weston may access his personal account, but the primary residence will remain under Mrs. Weston's control." Ethan's jaw clenched. "This is insane." The judge turned to him. "What's insane?" "Mr. Weston is signing a legal contract you clearly didn't read." The gavel struck softly. We exited the courtroom into a gray hallway with flickering lights and scuffed tile floors, more honest than the restaurants and rooftop parties Ethan had grown used to. He followed me out. "Luna," he said, his voice keyeder now. "Can we talk just you and me? 27 years can't end like this." I turned to him. "It didn't have to," I replied. "But you ended it." "Ethan, I'm just making it official." He nodded. Slowly. "So this is it. This is freedom." I said, "For both of us, I just happen to know what to do with it." Then I walked away, heels clicking against the tile, not once looking back. Behind me, Ethan stood there alone, holding nothing but the echo of choices he made and couldn't undo. And me, I didn't feel sad. I didn't feel angry. I felt light, like a woman stepping out of a storm and realizing the sky was hers again. In the weeks that followed, I didn't fall apart. I got to work. I rented a modest office space in downtown Tacoma, just a single room with secondhand furniture and a view of the alley behind a bakery. It wasn't glamorous, but it was mine. And for the first time in decades, I wasn't supporting someone else's dream. I was building my own. I called it WomenWise Financial, a consultancy for women navigating major life transitions, divorce, widowhood, career upheaval. I'd lived it. I knew how terrifying those blank pages could be. And I knew how to fill them with strategy, clarity, and confidence. My first client came through a referral from Marcy, then another, and another. Word spread. I didn't advertise. I didn't have to. Turns out, there are a lot of women who've been told, "Don't worry. He handles the money." And when the money disappears, so does their sense of control. I helped them get it back. At night, I'd light a candle in my apartment, sip chamomile tea, and read thank you notes from clients who said things like, "I finally feel like I'm in charge of my life again." And Natalie, she called every week from Charleston, where she'd started her first job at a marketing firm. She was thriving, independent, glowing. One night, she said, "You know what's funny? Dad used to say he was the brave one quitting jobs, chasing risks, starting businesses. But it's you. You're the brave one." I smiled into the phone. I was never afraid of building something. I was just afraid to admit I'd been building it alone. I didn't date. I didn't need to. My life was full in new, quiet, powerful ways. One afternoon, 6 months after the hearing, Marcy called, laughing. "You'll love this," she said. Haley left him. I raised an eyebrow. Already, apparently. He's not as established as he claimed. The car's gone. The condo fell through. His firm is bleeding clients. I didn't feel triumphant. I felt done. Ethan's collapse wasn't my victory. My victory was in every woman who walked into my office afraid and walked out informed. My victory was in the version of myself I had recovered quietly, fiercely, on my own terms. The final divorce hearing took place on what would have been our 28th wedding anniversary. I wore a navy blue pantsuit. No llevere. No sentimentality. Just clarity. Ethan looked smaller. Not physically, but in presence. The man who once filled every room with noise now sat hunched beside a second-rate attorney, staring down at a table that couldn't save him. The judge upheld every part of the prenuptial agreement: the assets, the retirement accounts, the primary home, the percentage of joint investments. When the gavel fell, it wasn't loud, but it was final. As we stepped into the hallway, Ethan approached me one last time. "You made a terrible mistake," he said softly. I don't even recognize who I became. I looked at him, really looked. And for the first time, I didn't feel rage. I didn't feel pity. I felt distance. And freedom? There was a time, I said, when I would have done anything to fix us. But that time ended long before you noticed. Is there any chance he started? No, I said gently but firmly. That door's closed. And I've already walked through a better one. He nodded, slow and heavy. I hope you find happiness. Luna, you deserve it. And for once, I believed he meant it. 6 months later, Women Wise Financial had expanded ADATA. I'd moved into a larger space and hired 2 associates, both women who had left controlling marriages and were now rebuilding their own careers. Natalie visited often. During one visit, she stood in my office doorway, watching as I helped a client understand her retirement options. "You know what's wild?" she said afterward. "If Dad had just been honest from the start, he might have kept half of everything." I smiled. Sometimes people are so focused on getting more, they lose what they already had. She nodded. But you didn't just walk away. Mom, you walked towards something. Yes. I didn't leave my marriage just to escape pain. And now I help other women find that door. Too. Because no matter how lost you feel, how far you've drifted, how much you've given away, there's always a way back to yourself. You just have to choose it. You know, people ask me sometimes, Luna, how did you stay so calm? How did you walk away without falling apart? And I tell them the truth. I did fall apart. Just not in front of him. Because this story, it was never really about Ethan. It wasn't about Haley, the affair, or even the money he siphoned off while I was busy holding our world together. That was just the trigger. The real story, the real lesson, was about remembering who I was before I made my entire life about someone else. You don't lose yourself all at once. It happens slowly. You give up your needs to keep peace. You downplay your dreams so theirs can shine. You become the glue that holds the house, the schedule, the family together, until one day, you look around and realize there's nothing left for you. And even worse, you think that's normal. I thought being a good wife meant sacrificing That being a strong woman meant enduring. I believed that love was proved by loyalty even when it wasn't returned. But here's what I know now. There's a difference between holding on and being held back. The night Ethan announced he was leaving, he thought he was the one making the bold move. That I'd crumble, cry, beg. What he didn't realize was I had already left him in my heart. I had already imagined a life where I wasn't walking on eggshells, where I wasn't the background to someone else's spotlight. And more importantly, I had already planned my escape, not out of spite, but out of strategy. Because healing, my friends, is not chaos. It's clarity. And when I finally chose me, that's when the rebuilding began. Not just the office space or the business or the finances, but the soul, the voice per voxen, the woman I used to be and the stronger version she became. So if you're listening to this, and you've given away so many pieces of yourself you don't even recognize your reflection anymore, please hear me when I say you are not too far gone. You are not too old. It is not too late. There is still power in your voice. There is still purpose in your path. And there is still time to rewrite the story. Just don't wait for someone to give you permission. Choose yourself. Stand up. Walk through the door. And close it behind you. Not out of bitterness, but because you finally know you deserve more than being someone's afterthought. You deserve to be your own beginning. Here's what I've learned. Sometimes, the worst thing that happens to you is actually the best thing that ever could have. When Ethan stood up in front of our family and friends and decided to start a new life without me, he thought he was making the bold move. He thought I would break. That I'd fade quietly into the background, like I always had. But what he didn't know, what he couldn't have imagined, was that I had already started over. Silently. Strategically. Powerfully. He lit the match. Yes. But I had already soaked the old blueprint in gasoline. Because sometimes, walking away isn't weakness. It's wisdom. Sometimes, letting go isn't giving up. It's growing up. I didn't fight for a man who stopped choosing me. I fought for a woman I had forgotten to choose for far too long. And that woman, she built a business from ashes. She gave other women the tools to stand taller, speak louder, and never apologize for demanding what they deserve. She raised a daughter who didn't inherit silence but strength, and she discovered that freedom isn't a place, it's a decision. I say this now to anyone listening who feels small. To anyone who's sitting in their car late at night, scrolling through messages they weren't meant to see. To anyone who's been told they're too emotional, too sensitive, too much. You are not too much. You are just too much for someone who refused to grow with you. You are not a burden. You are a beginning. And no matter how much of yourself you gave away, there's still enough left to rebuild. You don't need a perfect plan. You don't need revenge. You don't need anyone's permission to reclaim your worth. What you need is one quiet, courageous moment. One whisper inside that says, no more. No more shrinking. No more waiting to be chosen. No more defining yourself through someone else's dreams. You get to be the author now. And your story doesn't have to start with love lost or betrayal. It can start right here. With you, on your feet, facing forward. And finally free. Because the lesson was never about him. It was always about you. And the truth, you were never broken. You were just buried beneath everyone you tried to save. Now it's your turn. Save yourself.